Hi, and a warm welcome to this week. This week we'll look at worries and thinking traps, which are habitual errors in thinking, and how to deal with them. I'm sure all of us can relate to being worried at some point. However, what we're talking about this week is persistent worry that won't let up. For example, when your mind keeps playing the same old worry thoughts on repeat over and over and over again. Let's look at how this works in the case of Brian. Brian has recently started in a new job. He went to bed late last night, and because of that, he's tired, and he makes a minor mistake in responding to an important email. He feels embarrassed and thinks to himself, "Oh no, I messed up. What will my boss think of me?" He feels ashamed and worthless. Why does this thing always happen to me? Just last week, I mixed up timings and showed up late to an important conference call. Am I fit for this job? This spiral of negative thoughts causes him to feel anxiety and fear, which reinforces the negativity bias of his brain to continue thinking, "Everyone will notice I'm incompetent." This spiral of worries leads to worries about his future. What if I get fired? How will I pay my mortgage? By now, he feels so low that he generalizes the critique of his own self by saying things like, "I'm a failure and I'll never make it. My future's bleak." As you see, Brian has been trapped into a cycle of thoughts that aren't helpful, that we call a spiral of worry. As in Brian's case, sometimes worrying becomes excessive or unrelenting, especially when we're tired, stressed, or feeling overwhelmed. Our thinking is distorted by the negativity bias, causing us to feel stuck in thoughts about the challenging things that are happening to us. Engaging in excessive worry puts us on autopilot, where we try to solve problems without distinguishing that some of these might be imaginary or speculative. What's more, we believe these fictional worries to be true and end up worrying more. It can be challenging to disengage from these thoughts, which can further fuel feelings of anxiety until the worry grows bigger and bigger in our minds. When this happens, we're likely to fall into common thinking traps. These are unhelpful thought patterns that can trap us in a cycle of worry and low mood. There are 9 types of common thinking traps, and we'll discover how they can distort our perceptions of reality. For example, Brian fell into the trap of catastrophizing, which means to take small possibilities and blow them out of proportion into something negative. It's a common thinking trap that's usually a result of constantly going over problems that may not be as bad as they seem. This week, we'll teach you how you can start breaking this cycle of worry by becoming more aware of your thinking patterns, recognizing the traps, and developing more effective ways to respond. As we've learnt, thinking traps are negative habitual thought patterns that distort our perception of reality. We all fall into these thinking traps from time to time. We're much more likely to fall into these traps when we're feeling worried, stressed, or sad. We're also more vulnerable to thinking traps when we're unable to take good care of ourselves, like when we're not eating or sleeping well. Next, let's look at these thinking traps and see which ones you identify with. There are two different types of worry. One are worries you can do something about, and the second are worries that you can't do anything about at this moment. It's good to differentiate between these two types so that you can learn ways to manage or deal with these worries as they pop into your mind. So here's an example from Susan's life where she has a worry she can do something about. Susan recently got a letter from the bank saying she hadn't paid her credit card bill. It came with a demand to pay it within the next 7 days. Her mind reacted immediately by saying, Oh no, I forgot to pay my credit card bill, and now the bank have sent a warning. This could affect my credit rating. I could even lose my mortgage. I could lose my house. I've failed to take care of the most basic things in my life. I'm a mess, and so on. As you can see, the initial worry just escalated out of control into scenarios that are very unlikely, if not totally unrealistic. So instead of sitting around worrying about this, she could just pay the credit card bill. Now, I'll give you an example of another kind of worry. You read a newspaper and it talks about the threat of terrorism. You start thinking, what if there's a terror attack in my city? There might be a bomb or some kind of attack. What if I or somebody I love gets hurt? Can you see the difference between this example and the previous one? In the case of the credit card bill, there's a concrete action I can take to deal with the worry. In the case of the hypothetical terror attack, there's not much I can do to control what will happen. Next, I'm going to introduce you to a tool that you can use in your everyday life to differentiate between these two types of worries, the ones you can do something about versus those you can't control. So let's use this tool with examples I gave you. Let me take the first example and plug it in. Do I have a problem in my life? Yes, I do. The problem is I haven't paid my credit card bill and the payment is late. Can I do something about it? If I can pay it, the answer is yes. And then I take action and I pay the credit card bill. Even though the payment may be a few days late, I've done all that I can to remedy the situation. So the majority of the things I was worried about are no longer an issue. Now let's plug the second example into the worry maze and see what happens. Do I have a problem in my life? Yes, I do. It's terrorism. Can I do something about it? I don't think I have any control over whether terrorist attacks happen, unfortunately. You can use the worry maze to help you decide if you have the ability to tackle a worry that might be troubling you at the moment. This will support you to make decisions and take action when it's possible, or manage the worry better when you can't take any control over the situation. It's important to remember that our mind's job is to produce thoughts, and we can't stop the mind from thinking. We also have no control over what kinds of thoughts our mind creates. However, we can have awareness of how we respond to our thoughts. This is really powerful because it means we have a choice. Do we want to continue to fuel worry thoughts and give them a sense of importance by dwelling on them constantly? Or alternatively, we can choose to respond to these thoughts mindfully. In order to bring a change, we first need to practice noticing worry thoughts and identifying unproductive thinking traps. When you notice that you're ruminating with worrying thoughts, instead of ruminating on them, you'll learn to write down your worries in the worry maze. The worry maze helps you to determine if you have influence and can take action on your worry. This week's practices will help you both in finding solutions and taking action, as well as letting go of worries. Sometimes with complex issues like shall I change jobs, it's tricky to understand what we can have influence on and what we can't. On Wednesday, I'll give you some tips for ways in which you can approach such moments. In the meantime, if you have more questions or thoughts, feel free to reach out to your therapist.